You go right ahead, Ruben. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. It's great to see so many familiar faces out there. If you guys don't know me, I'm Ruben Gellage. I'm the 2023 president of the Newport Beach Association of Realtors. I'm also director of large at the Laguna Board of Realtors and a manager at Certere Properties. Well, we have a great topic this morning. CRMLS is going to discuss listing statuses, particularly what's allowed under each listing status. And I'm pleased that we have Jeff Smetana, CRMLS's Director of Compliance and Data Management, with us to go over those statuses. And Jeff, I believe you're also Assistant General Counsel at CRMLS. Is that correct?
Yes, I am unfortunately a recovering litigator, and but I am still a lawyer, so forgive me in advance.
Excellent. Jeff will be pausing periodically to answer all your questions. Just as an aside, if you have questions specific to your listings, your specific listings, they're probably better addressed to Jeff in his email. Jeff, if you want to pop your email or contact info into the chat so people can address specific questions on their listings to you, instead of just general questions about listing statuses, like the difference between registered and coming soon, difference between on hold and withdrawn, and what we're allowed to do and what we're not allowed to do under each of those. So without further ado, Jeff, take it away.
All right. Thanks, Ruben, and thanks, Kimberly, for setting this up. As Ruben has indicated, I've been asked to talk to you guys about some specific topics. And this is based upon feedback that Kimberly has collected from you all. And I'm happy to do that. I've put together a targeted PowerPoint. I'm not the greatest PowerPoint user. I don't put graphics and fly-ins and comics and cartoons. So it's kind of lawyerly. It's just it's a lot of language, but if it comes to pass that you guys want the copies of these slides, I'm happy to send those over to Kimberly and she can distribute those to you as a reference guide. Speaking of reference guides, before I get going, I'm going to put into the chat a bit of a link storm. And what you'll see there are specific educational resources that compliance has developed for the topic to cover today. So if you're someone who has a few extra minutes, I would encourage you to go ahead and take a look at some of those. You'll see, educational material on registered listings, registered versus coming soon, registered FAQs, coming soon FAQs, as well as what I would consider the Rosetta Stone of FAQs, which is the compliance general FAQs. It's long, it's 27 pages. It's way shorter than the rule set, but it's long because it covers 99% of what we see on a regular basis. So if you can afford an hour to attend this presentation, that's great. But if you can take 30 minutes and get that general FAQ and run through it, you'll be, believe it or not, you'll be far ahead of your colleagues in your knowledge of compliance, and maybe, just maybe, continue to avoid ever interacting with us, as I'm sure you are hopeful to do. So there's all the links. I'm sorry it's cluttered. I'll throw that back in at the end of the presentation and we will go from there. So let me get my screen shared. Oh, I got somebody feeding back on me. And let's see, where's my slideshow? There we go. All right. Kimberly, is that up?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, excellent. So Ruben already kind of talked about what we're going to cover today, and this is the list of topics. So we're going to talk in the first section about registered, coming soon, and active listings by way of comparison. I'm going to give you a brief clear cooperation review because clear cooperation is an issue that's certainly relevant to registered listings because they're not in the MLS. So that means you have to be mindful of the clear cooperation rules. So that should help you as well. A coming soon review with just a couple of minor specifics on coming soon that you may already be aware of, but I think it's a good refresher. Then I'm going to talk about hold or withdrawn, which is, believe it or not that complicated, but I do understand that they are very similar concepts, but I can help you with your understanding on that. And then at the end, I'll give you some bullet points on how to avoid any violations regarding the topics that we're going to cover. And then there's Q&A, which I will pause for, excuse me, throughout the presentation. So without further ado, let's talk about registered coming soon and active listings. So now keep in mind that registered is not a status per se, it's a process. It is literally the process that we implemented to replace what used to have to happen when you got a listing. As you join an MLS, you agree, the primary agreement is by joining, I'm going to agree to put my listings in so that everybody can see them and sell them. And then I get the same benefit from my colleagues. But from time to time, you might not be able to submit a listing to the MLS for cooperation, but nonetheless, you still have to let us know about it. So there is a way to, keep your listing off the MLS, but no matter what, Rule 7.8, the mandatory submission rule, which has been around for decades, it is not new, is that baseline minimum requirement that says once you get a listing agreement, you need to let the MLS know about it. Now, in the past, you would take your SELM form, your exclusion form, or even CRMLS had our own form, and you would send that to us. We had a little link and you could send that, or you could send it to your AOR and they would forward it to us. And at that point, you would have complied with Rule 7.8. So what we did a few years ago is came up with a way to do that online. You don't have to send us your SELMs or your exclusion forms anymore. You should certainly have them, right? You want all your instructions from your seller in writing. You may also be aware that the new RLA has paragraph 7 that essentially accomplishes all the things that a SELM accomplishes as well. So you don't always need an extra form. But if the situation is that your seller is not ready to put it in the MLS yet, you still have to let us know. But now you get to do that in a pretty easy format. You can just go into your listing toolbox in Matrix and register your listing by putting in 5 pieces of information. So as the first paragraph said, you need the form, you need to let us know about it, but now you don't need to send us the form. You can simply go online and send it in, and give us the information, and then you will have complied with Rule 7.8. Okay, so again, registered is not a process. It's not a status, it's a process. Replacing the old send us your exclusion form. Characteristics of registered. Now, here's where I think people start to get confused between registered and coming soon. So a registered listing is not yet in the MLS for cooperation. It's not in the MLS for sale, guys. It's not visible. No one knows about it except for us and the AOR staff and you and your broker and your seller, obviously. It's just sitting behind the curtain as a registered listing. It is not in there. You're not, there's no DOM, no days on market accruing. It's just an off MLS listing. Thus, clear cooperation applies. So all of those concepts about clear cooperation, who is the public? Who can I talk to about this listing that I have not yet put in the MLS? That's where you need to be aware of clear cooperation. Now, sometimes you just need to exclude the listing or keep it out for a couple of weeks. You've got your listing agreement. Your clients are going to go on vacation and they really don't want to hassle with this, but you're happy because you have your contract and they don't want it in the MLS yet. They're like, okay, let's just wait till we get back, or some other issue, right? Contractors are still there, things like that. We just don't want to go in the MLS. Well, that's fine. You're allowed to do that when you register your listing. You get to tell us when you're going to go in and put it in the MLS. Or sometimes the clients don't want it in the MLS at all, right? For various reasons. It's also allowed. Again, during the time frame that you have your listing excluded, you simply need to be aware of what's going on with your marketing. Okay, and I'm going to drill down a little bit further into clear cooperation for those of you who are not familiar with it in a few slides. So again, the second point here, registered listings are not in the MLS. They're not searchable, they're not displayed, they're not visible. They're essentially invisible to the world, other than, again, the insiders who know about the fact that it's been excluded. What can I do with my registered listing? Well, have to adhere to the CCP rule, which we're going to talk about. And the short version of that, in terms of what you can do, I already talked a little bit about what you can't do, right? And I'm going to talk more. You can't market it to the public without triggering that rule. You can go down that office exclusive road. Okay, so we still understand you want to sell the listing, even though it's not in the MLS. Your sellers definitely want to get it sold. There is an exemption, sort of a carve out in the clear cooperation rule for you to still sell that listing that's not in the MLS for cooperation. And that is to sell it within the office exclusive framework, which means you can communicate about your off MLS listing to the other agents in your office. That is defined as those who are under the same broker's license as you and not trigger the rule. And you can also talk about it to the broker's clients. And we define that as anyone who assigned the AD form with your broker in the last year. Because at that point, they're not just some prospect. All right. They're not someone who's been on your mailing list for 10 years and you haven't talked to them forever. These are people you're actively engaged with, such to the extent that you've actually given them an AD form. Because at that point, you've probably entered into an agent-principal relationship. So that AD form sort of symbolizes that line that's crossed from prospect to client. So those who have that form, that your broker has that form signed with, you could talk to them about your off MLS listing. And within that framework, you can still certainly sell your registered listing. And I'm going to get into what you can't do a little bit more in detail when we talk about clear cooperation. But to summarize, note that registered is not a status, it's a process. It's a parking spot, so to speak. And while you're parked in registered, you need to be sensitive or at least conscious of whether or not you publicly market that listing. And you make sure you stay within the confines of the CCP by staying within the office exclusive framework. Should I pause here, guys, for registered, or do you want me to blow through the next couple of content slides and we can go comprehensive?
Well, Jeff, I've got a quick question.
Sure.
About the mandatory submission and the 2 days of the effective date, because you
Great.
touched on that. Does the effective date count as day 0 or day 1? And so, for example, if an agent takes a listing on Friday night, when does it need to be submitted to the MLS?
Gotcha. Okay. Excellent question. I didn't put that in here because I didn't want to, dazzle anybody with all the details, but that's a very relevant point. So the trigger here is the effective date of the listing contract. And if you want to know, it's the effective date is determined by either the date of the last necessary signature or the date that the listing period begins, whichever is later. So quick hypothetical, let's say you get your listing agreement final signature on May 25th, but the listing period begins June 1st and goes through the end of the year. So June 1st is day 0. So June 3rd would be the finish line. So when the clock runs out for you to put your listing in. So the effective date is day 0. And then 2 days after that, now these are calendar days, guys, not business days. 2 days after, so if it's June 1st is your effective date, you'd have until the end of day June 3rd to register or put it in for cooperation under coming soon or active. Is that clear?
Yep, thank you.
You got it. All right, I'm going to keep going because I think we can do a bunch of questions after the next few slides. So a coming soon listing is definitively different than a registered listing because coming soon is a real status. A coming soon listing is in the MLS. Okay, not only does a listing contract exist, it's in the MLS now for cooperation. You've satisfied the mandatory submission rule. And because you're in the MLS, you don't need to think about clear cooperation. Once you cross that line into coming soon or active, the CCP concepts become irrelevant. You don't have to think about who the public is. You don't have to think about what public marketing is. You simply need to pay attention to the distinctions between the statuses and the certain peculiarities of them. So this slide here shows the actual definition from our rule set. Basically, a couple of quirks with coming soon is you do need to have a signed instruction to use coming soon, and I'm going to show you the instruction that we've created for that. And you need to be sensitive with your advertising. You want to make sure that you put coming soon on your advertising to the greatest extent possible. I use a little bit of an example. So if you have And also we actually ask that you let folks know in your advertising when it's going to be active, when it's going to be available for showings. Okay. We're pretty reasonable about this. For instance, if you have a sign up out front and you have a coming soon rider on top, we would qualify that as being sufficient. I'm not going to ask you to go and handwrite the active date on top on your coming soon rider. It's simply the concept of let's make sure we're fair to the consumers, right? That they know it's a coming soon, and their agent also knows that it's coming soon, and they know what that constitutes. So the other cool thing about coming soon, and you know, we were asked for coming soon for probably 15 years, and eventually we found the technological capability to pull it off, and created the status for you guys. The highlights of coming soon: you get to put the listing in the MLS for cooperation. Your sellers get the benefit of that massive exposure of the MLS. They get up to 21 days of that exposure without accruing any days on market. So the bottom line, boiled down essence of coming soon is, I've got a listing, my sellers are anxious to get going, but they're not really 100% ready to meet the world, right? We want to see what kind of interest we're going to generate. And so we say, okay, great. You can do that. We'll give you up to 21 days, a free hall pass on DOM. The only limitations we ask in exchange for that hall pass is that no showings are allowed. Because let's be honest, if it's ready for showings and it's completely ready to go, then it's active. Okay, so as a trade-off for the 21 days no DOM, to see what kind of excitement and interest you're getting, full exposure in the MLS. Now it doesn't go out into the IDX feeds. It does go to the VAL feeds, and if you're concerned about that, you know, it just means that there's less widespread distribution of your listing to all of the broker and agent websites. It's visible in the MLS for up to 21 days, no DOM, so long as you don't show it. Okay, again, because that keeps within the confines of the spirit of the rule. You're doing it for a certain reason, not to sort of take an end run out of making it available to people. Okay, that's the essence of coming soon. Again, I pointed out some special characteristics. They are not subject to clear cooperation rules because they're in the MLS, guys. They are not off MLS listings. Forget about who the public is or what marketing is once you cross that line. Coming soon listings are totally visible in the MLS. They're as visible as any active listing. They're searchable. They show up in the hot sheets, save searches, no limitation on the information. Coming soon listings are required to have all the same required fields and photos as an active listing, so they don't look any different in the MLS, frankly. And what you can do with the coming soon listing, and this is probably just the opposite of saying you have to adhere to the clear, you don't have to adhere to the clear cooperation policy, is you get to market it any way you want. I say this a lot when I'm talking about the difference between coming soon and registered, but think about this with coming soon, write it down. Coming soon listing is just like an active listing that you can't show. There are a couple of quirks, as I mentioned, regarding your advertising and the limitation of 21 days, so on and so forth. But generally speaking, what can you do with your coming soon listing? Everything you can do with your active listing, except for show it. That's as simple as I can make it. So two main points you want to write down if you're taking notes is clear cooperation doesn't apply. And I can treat this like an active listing, but I can't show it. Okay. The other details, the sub details, like the 21-day limit and things like that, you should certainly pay attention to, because those are things you want to talk to your seller about. But for you as a practitioner, those are kind of the guiding lights for a coming soon listing. Now, this is an easy one. What is an active listing? Look, an active listing is all green lights across the board. Okay. As long as you follow the rest of the rules, the active listing is, you know, the most, it's like a fee simple, right? It's the greatest extent of ownership in property rights. So an active listing goes everywhere, totally marketable, able to be shown, no limitations on marketing, all of that, those things, you know and understand that when your listing is active, it's green lights all the way down the line. The one thing about active listing is you don't again, you don't have to worry about clear cooperation. You don't have to worry about the public. You're good to go. Okay. Characteristics of active listings. Now, I should point out active certainly gets DOM accumulated. Okay, days on market. Our systems start counting days on market from the minute or from the day that a listing goes into active. Okay, so if you've been in coming soon for 21 days, you switch it to active the next day, you're at 0 DOM. At the end of that day, you'll be at 1. That's how DOM starts counting. So again, things you already know clearly on this slide. It's in the MLS for cooperation, doesn't apply. Do what you want with your marketing, including showings. Don't worry about who the public is or any of that stuff. Totally searchable, displayed and visible, just like coming soon. What can I do? As I said, you can do pretty much anything you want, as long as you obey all the rest of the rules, okay? So that is kind of the bullet or point by point descriptions of the differences or the characteristics of those first 3 items: registered, coming soon, and active. I'm going to drill down a little bit further, but why don't we talk for a couple of minutes and take a couple of questions if anybody has any.
Jeff, quick question on coming soon. So there's a 21-day limit. If the seller is not ready to show at that point, would the seller then switch it to hold? Would that be the appropriate status?
You can certainly do that. That is one option. We're going to drill down on hold a little bit further. Now, note that the matrix system, which you guys are users, will automatically move the listing from coming soon to active based upon whatever date, start marketing date you put in for your coming soon. There's a field in there and it'll trigger over. If it flips it to active and your seller's not ready to go, you can use hold. Okay, we're going to talk about what you need for hold. And once you go into hold, one similarity between hold and coming soon is no showings. Okay, because the concept behind hold is very similar to what coming soon is, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. But just be aware, your seller's not ready to go, as you explained specifically, Ruben, they're not ready to show, you can go into hold. And the good news in hold is you also will not accrue days on market. So while you're in hold, you'll get that free pass continuing on DOM. Now you can go into hold, and I'll just, jump ahead here. You can stay in hold for up to 30 days, provided you have written instructions from your seller to use the hold status. Once you near the end of that 30-day period, you can extend it. You would need an additional instruction from your seller to do so. That's all capable and doable within the matrix system. So yes, that's a great place to park it. One other option is, and I don't know if this comes as a surprise to any of you guys, but be aware that there is no requirement under the CRMLS rule set that when you push a listing as active that you have to show it. Now, this has been, I don't know, a minor controversy, but our rules committee and board of directors has debated this a lot over the years, and we're just not in a situation where we can just force someone to let someone into their home. Okay, so some MLSs do it differently, but if you have an active listing and your seller says, I don't want to show it for a week, you don't have to go to another status. Best practice would be to put into your private remarks, seller wants to hold off on showings until this date. And we give you guys the benefit of the doubt that you're going to use that option correctly and ethically. So you could go to hold, certainly a quick, easy move, or you could go into active and then sort of have to explain to agents who are calling you why it's not being shown, but they can't make you show it. Is that enough or too much? All right, any other questions on any of these introductory concepts? Okay.
For those that do, you can type your questions in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself and ask Jeff directly.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on the chat best I can. As long as it's not a big flood. I'm going to open the chat window and push it right in front of my nose.
That's okay, Jeff. I'll let you know if anything shows up.
All right, perfect. All right, so then let's bounce forward here. So this is an excerpt. It's basically a table that compares the 3 topics I just discussed. It's an easy reference guide for those who are like me, who love charts. This is something you can have as a little matrix to answer the most relevant questions to all of these subjects. This is an adaptation of a document that I already provided you a link for. At the beginning, I placed a link in there for the difference between registered and coming soon. It's a very detailed document, including footnotes and additional explanations for the difference between registered and coming soon specifically. So that document only has the first two columns on the right side, but it's more than enough to support the information I've given you today. I threw in active on the right side because I threw it in today. So if you want more of this and to have handy, scroll back up in the chat to the links that I posted at the beginning, which I'll show you again at the end. But it's pretty straightforward, right? It covers all the topics. Do I need a listing agreement for all of them? Yes, you do. Of course you do. Do I need to enter the listing within 2 days of the effective list date? Yes. As I explained a little bit earlier, Rule 7.8, been around forever, not going anywhere. You still either need to put your listing in within 2 days of the effective date, either by submitting for cooperation or registering it. And then the differences start to become apparent. You know, some of them are sort of obvious. You know, the only status you need a coming soon form for instance, is coming soon. And it goes on from there. So again, if you get your hands on this slideshow, PowerPoint slides that I will send to Kimberly, you will have this handy. And I see that Kimberly has just pushed in a PDF for the document that I was just referencing. If you want to just grab it right there, that looks pretty easy to me. I'm not going to go over this line by line. I do want to get you guys out of here in an hour possibly, so let's keep going. So I mentioned coming soon, and I apologize if this is ground that we've already tread over, but I'm sorry, I mentioned CCP, my bad. Clear cooperation policy, biggest development in the MLS world the last 10 years, easily. Sort of percolated under the surface for quite some time, the concept of pocket listings and silos of data, so to speak, you know, sales that were not, that took place, but we don't have any data for in the MLS. That doesn't help, you know, consumers and or agents trying to analyze property values and things like that. So NAR stepped up and created this new policy that said, yes, you can still exclude your listing, right? That's not going to go away. But in the past, you could exclude it and market it to your heart's content. That's how it used to be. All right, big change. You can still exclude your listing, but if you market it to the public, you're going to trigger this rule and you've got to put it in. Okay, that's as simple as I can make it. That was the policy. We wrote our rule to try to be far more detailed. We made sure that people understood that this only applies to listings that are subject to an exclusive right to sell or seller reserved listing agreement. Why is that important? Well, because you can still keep your listing out of the MLS if you want to use an open listing agreement. Okay, so you're not precluded under an open listing agreement from publicly marketing. This rule does not apply if you're so willing to do that. You know, that's a special arrangement, I understand, but it's certainly possible. The other thing is keep in mind, it's only 1 to 4 units or residential vacant land. So if you're doing leases, clear cooperation doesn't apply. If you're selling commercial, doesn't apply. It's really just, you know, those single family 1 to 4s and your vacant land, which is kind of like that most consumer visible category. And I think that is consistent with the spirit of the rule. So a couple of quirks there. We have a very expansive definition, or I should say detailed definition of what public marketing is. And it's funny because you're all agents, you're all salespeople, you know what marketing is, right? I don't necessarily have to explain it to you. It's really any efforts that you take to visibly expose your sale, your listing, anybody by any method. Okay, but we've got it listed out. Signs, websites, social media, brokerage or franchise operated websites, communications, verbal or written, multi-brokerage or franchise listing sharing networks, flyer or written material, on any applications or by conducting an open house. So really just the whole universe of the ways that you guys would communicate and advertise a listing. It's public marketing. Now, who is the public? and I talked about this before because this is very relevant to the office exclusive exception. You can still sell an off MLS listing. You still have an audience. It's just not the public. Who is the audience? Who is the market? The market for your off MLS listing is the other agents in your office. That's not necessarily in the rule, but it's part of the rule. So, and by that, guys, I don't mean anybody else in the state of California who has the same logo on their business card. Okay, it's very specific to your office. So if I go onto the DRE website and look up your designated broker, there's going to be a list of agents for whom that broker is responsible under that agent's name. Anyone on that list that you're on that list with is not the public. Okay, very, very clear. The other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, there are clients that you have that are not considered the public. We define that as anyone who has signed the AD form with your listing broker in the last year. Once again, we understand the difference between prospects, the public, and customers. Really, really your clients. Okay, these are people you're actively working with. Not to repeat myself, but someone who's been on your mailing list for 10 years, you've not seen or spoken to, doesn't rise to the level of a client. I think we all know that intuitively. At some point though, perhaps you reconnect with that person. They say, look, I'm in the market to buy. And then you start taking them around, showing them homes. Well, you know, under state law that as soon as it becomes reasonable, you're supposed to get an AD form signed with that person because you have a duty to disclose to them your agent responsibilities and what it all means under the law. So you get that AD form signed and it's clearly under your brokerage. That person has now risen to the level of a client. And if you have a listing that is not in the MLS, and you want to communicate that to them, including showing it to them, guys. You can show it to them. You can send them documents. You can send them information. You can sell that home, that property, that multi-unit, that land. You can sell that within the office exemption, office exclusive exemption, which again is defined by the other agents under your broker and the folks who have the AD form with you in the last year. Okay, clear cooperation coming up on 3 years. And if it's new to you, well, okay, but it's here and we've been working on it. This is a more visual representation. Who's the public? I just went over that in detail. What's marketing? Again, I would argue that you all know what marketing is, but there's some pictures. Social media, open houses, big office meetings, flyers, marketing emails, etc. Any questions on clear cooperation?
Jeff, I had a question come in. So an agent has a registered listing. The seller has a pod out front. There's work being done on the house, and a local agent asks the listing agent, do you have a listing on that property? How does the listing agent answer that without, I mean, if they say, yes, I do, now are they in violation of the CCP because they have told another agent that they have a listing?
No, I mean, that's a very specific hypothetical. And these are going to be fact sensitive, so I respect that. But I would say under that very specific hypothetical that agent hasn't actively engaged in marketing, right? Somebody just walked up to them and asked them a question. They did the right thing and said, yes, I have a listing. Further information will be forthcoming, you know, that kind of a thing. You just have to, you know, when you're trying to generate interest and when you're not, right? I am often defer to the intuitive guidance that we all have, you know, with respect to these. But I do know that hypotheticals in real life situations can get quirky. Under that scenario you just presented, we would not cite someone for that.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Oh, this is just another slide that sort of reiterates some of the concepts I've already gone over.
Oh, Jeff, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Chapman has his hand raised before
Okay.
we move on.
Yeah, welcome, Bob. What do you got?
Sorry, the scenario, as you went through it with registered listings and coming soon, what happens when a brokerage decides to aggregate their, let's call them exclusive listings, because they are legally done under the registered process, which is not a status. And however, the brokerage decides to aggregate them as exclusive listings and include them in emails to their agents, which of course is still okay in the registered process because they're all within the same office, so to speak.
Right.
But then agents take that and email it out to prospective clients with note to note, this is our exclusive list of listings.
Yeah.
I'm seeing that often, seen that a lot, not sure what to make of it, but it sounds like based on your summary, that's something that probably should not have been done and don't know why it was done. And it doesn't seem to be causing any concern with anybody at CRMLS, CAR, or anybody else.
Well, I don't know that's not causing any concern because we have had that scenario come up. And it's a very fair question because we know that once something is released into the wild, so to speak, it can go anywhere. We're pretty good at tracking down evidence, to be honest. So if, for instance, under that hypothetical, a listing agent properly sent a pre-marketing email about a new listing to the agents within the office, you know, for one, we would sort of hope that the broker had already instructed, you know, proper use of that. And if someone though, anyway, decides, I'm going to send this to my clients outside of the brokerage or someone else, and we have a trail, so to speak, that email that went out marketing was sent by someone who was not the listing agent, we're probably going to temper our evaluation of that and not issue a citation. And but on the other hand, that agent who did that could be subject to a violation for being untruthful in their marketing, right? Because what they've essentially done is say, this is a listing that anybody can know about, and I'm sending it to you, when they know full well that that's not the case. So we would drill down on the facts, but we're not probably going to hit the listing agent for $2,500 in that situation. But again, it's fact sensitive, Bob. I'm going to dig in on it and see what we can find.
Okay, because I'm just assuming if the outreach is quote unquote exclusive listings, I have to also assume those are registered status properties.
Correct. And the first thing we do when we get a report of what you're describing is we check and make sure it was registered. Because here's the reality, you could break both rules. Right. You could have a listing agreement, you could not register it timely, and you could market it to the public and then not put it in within one business day. That's a hefty situation to have to address.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
No problem. Anybody else? Right.
Jeff, one more that an agent texted me. I think they're
sure.
A little shy or want to be anonymous.
Okay.
If an agent does not have a signed listing, but rather has a client or neighbor who wants them to advertise what we, I guess, used to think of as pocket listings, can they advertise that without violating the CCP? Because they say,
yeah, it's a very obvious loophole, so to speak, but it is what it is, right? Because think about it, it's consistent. The idea of cooperation is triggered by a listing agreement. So for instance, rule 7.8, the mandatory submission rule, is triggered once your listing agreement becomes effective, which presumes, of course, that you have a listing agreement. Now, there's other concepts here that I think a lot of us would be concerned with, right? Now, it's free country. It's not illegal to do that, although there's some people who think so. But I was in the industry for a long time. My broker was Ed Zorn, my boss. And if I was working for a client without a contract, this is just me and him, he would have fired me. All right. So that's one comment. The other thing is we often wonder if this is in keeping with the NAR Code of Ethics. Okay, are you really being truthful if you're marketing something when you don't have an agency relationship with that seller? It raises other concerns, Ruben, that I'm not going to completely analyze here, but to get down to the brass tacks, if you put up a sign and market something and you do not have a listing agreement, the letter of the law, the black letter of the CCP rule states that you have not triggered the rule.
okay, thank you. So maybe an ethics violation, maybe a brokerage violation, but it's not an MLS violation.
It's not. Very,
Okay.
very well said. I think it's a cause for concern under some other jurisdictional aspects of our practice, but no, not an MLS violation. Here's another visual slide that we've been using since the beginning that really just kind of drills down registered versus coming soon, doesn't have active in the construct. So you might find this useful if you get your hands on these slides. Pretty clear here, things that I've already covered. Again, highlights of coming soon. You can mark it, fully displayed in the MLS. It's for sale. I've actually had the question, someone has asked me many times, honestly, can I accept an offer while my listing's in coming soon? Yes, of course you can, right? You got an offer somehow without showing it, not unheard of. We all have, a lot of us have worked with out-of-state investors, these kinds of things. It can happen. The offer comes in subject to inspection or something like that. Well, you move out of coming soon, guys, as soon as you get the offer accepted, right? You're required to go into active under contract or pending. So you're not in coming soon anymore, which means you can show it, right? So I think we know the practical way of that happening. No DOM, MLS distribution only. I touched on this earlier. It means it's not going out in the IDX feeds. IDX stands for Internet Data Exchange. We have over 22,000 IDX feeds going out to agents and brokers who have searchability, MLS searchability on their websites. What this means is the coming soon listings are not going out in those feeds. So in exchange for no DOM, one, you can't show it, and two, you get limited market visibility. Linda Hartman has placed a great question in the chat. Why not go to all sources? And that's what I was just touching on, Linda, is we're asking you to give up a few things in order to get 21 days of free DOM, which is showings and widespread exposures in the IDX feeds. The answer to your question, why, is because if we didn't, it'd just be an active listing. Right? I wouldn't see any noticeable difference between that. So it's an exchange. That's right. You cannot show it. Very well. This is the rule 9.3. You guys I've already gone over the details of this. Again, this will be in your slideshow. The coming soon form, which I mentioned, which is mandatory when you use a coming soon status. This is really an advisory form. I think we all know we want things from our seller in writing. We've created this form to really drill down and provide all the details that your seller should be aware of when they're using coming soon. You see item number 1, no showings. Number 2 is the limited advertising, which I just covered, the 21-day limit. This is all fair and good. We've created this for your use. You do not have to send us this form. It's just for your file. And in case it comes up in an investigation or a review, we would want to see that. That is available on our website. It's also available in your zip forms library. So keep it in mind. It's for you. Talk it over with your sellers before you go into coming soon, get it signed, stick it in your file, and then off you go. There it is, available on our website. All right. Anything left on coming soon? I understand there are some folks who disagree with the use of the rule, but again, it's in place now. Those are the decisions that have been made by our rules committee and the board of directors, who are all agents and brokers, by the way, as to what coming soon is and isn't. All right. Anything else coming soon? Okay. So one of our last feature points is hold versus withdrawn. These are handy tools, but I am going to make a very silly analogy, which is hold. The difference between hold and withdrawn is if I'm on a date and my date gets up to go to the restroom or to take a phone call, but I'm certain she's coming back, I'm on hold. If, however, my date asks for a doggy bag, takes her purse and her keys, and runs out the front door of the restaurant, that date opportunity has been withdrawn. I apologize that is a silly analogy, but I want to sort of reiterate, sort of point out the difference here is that hold is a temporary, sort of non-serious situation, whereas withdrawn is pulling it off the market without terminating the listing agreement. Hold is used for some pauses that you often encounter working in this job. Something happened, we got a flood, right? It's going to rain for a week. I mean, these kind of things happen in California still. I realize that. Seller wants to go out of town. Somebody got sick. Or we've got so many offers. It doesn't make any sense to keep showing it and taking in offers. We need to sit down for a few days over the weekend and see what's going on. Those are all practical issues. You use hold for those types of situations. For, again, as I've stated before, up to 30 days. And if you need longer, you can go longer. Caveats are, make sure your seller has given you written instructions to go into hold. Make sure that they understand that while you're in hold, you don't get hit with DOM and you can't show it. Because again, it's the same concept. We need a pause. We shouldn't be punished by accruing DOM if we need a break. Just like in coming soon, we shouldn't be punished by accruing DOM if we're not showing it, it's not completely ready to meet the world. Okay, same idea for hold. You can leave your marketing up in hold because, guys, it's still on the market. You haven't reached that level of problems in the listing sequence or the listing process where it's really just one step short of canceling. Withdrawn, a valid listing is still in effect. However, the property is no longer being marketed, and as such, no marketing or advertising shall occur consistent with Rule 7.9. What that means is if you go into withdrawn, your sign's got to come down. Your specific website for that property has got to come down. It's off the market for all intents and purposes, but you still do have a legal, valid, enforceable listing agreement. You've just reached some sort of situation with this relationship where it's probably not going to go forward. So that's kind of the layman's or the natural language description of what the difference is. Hold is a very handy tool. Withdrawn is a much more serious indicator that the listing is, maybe on its way out. Here's a little written description that you can have in the slideshow slides. Again, the seller simply needs a pause in the listing process. This could be to review offers, engage in repairs, take a vacation, etc. Property is still on the market. It's just a break. You can leave your sign up, continue your efforts in most respects. While in hold, your listing will not accrue any days on market. With the seller's instructions, you can stay in hold for up to 30 days and you can extend the hold period as needed. So the technicalities of this are when you go into Matrix and you move it to hold, it's going to ask you for your activation date. It's going to ask you when are you going to come out of hold, right? And so you can put it in there up to 30 days out. The system will move it to active on that date unless you go in before that date and reset it. Make sense? I'm going to get to Mark's question in a second here, but I just want to go over withdrawn one more time. Withdrawn is used when the seller no longer wants the property on the market. It could be a wide variety of reasons. It's not necessarily because of you, of course. This is just short of canceling a listing agreement from the seller side. All marketing, including your sign, must come down or cease. Mark asks, so something you just said sounded as, if an agent maintains a website for a past listing, it's an MLS violation once it gets resisted by another, I'll interpret that as relisted by another agent. Is this correct? So I think what you're getting at, Mark, is let's say you've got a listing, it's in withdrawn, your website is still up, and then someone else relists it, even though you still have a listing agreement. Hopefully that's my correct interpretation of that. Oh, registered. Okay, let me reread this. Once it's registered by another agent. I'm a little confused. Let me see if I can just create a scenario here that matches what you're describing. So if an agent maintains a website for a past listing, I'm going to presume that that is a sold listing, and then it gets registered by another agent. Is that a violation? And the answer under that construction would be no. Because if you've sold your listing, you no longer have a listing agreement. It sounds like you're inferring that clear cooperation would apply to you for advertising a sold listing. I would kick that out of that rule based on the fact that it's simply not subject to a listing agreement anymore. And it would be kind of a crazy interpretation of the rule that you can't advertise your sales under that construct. Okay. Okay. Well, that, believe it or not, was my explanation of hold versus withdrawn. I was told that that's a subject you were very interested in. Does anybody have any questions on those differences and what they mean and when you should use it or how you should use it? I guess not.
Oh, Jeff, real quick, do hold or withdrawn listings reciprocate to the internet through the IDX feed? I think you alluded to they do not.
They do not. They do not. IDX is only going to include active / what we call on-market listings and closed sales for up to the last 12 years. And again, not coming soon. Now, if you have a vow, if you are someone who simultaneously or independently operates what we call a virtual office website, which is basically just practicing real estate without brick and mortar, you're going to get a full feed. You will get coming soons. You'll get all of them because we are required under the law to give you the same access as we would a brick and mortar shop. That is apropos of nothing. Hopefully it wasn't too out there. That is the content in terms of definitions and information. But here's a little checklist, or I should say a shopping list of how to stay out of the weeds / violation zone on these topics. They're pretty simple. They're pretty straightforward. Number one, if you take a listing and you have not yet put it in the MLS, be very careful not to market to the public. This includes putting up your sign, sending pre-market emails, etc., and watch out for vendor mistakes. So if you get instructions from your seller, hey, the listing agreement's signed, we're all happy to go, but we need a week before it goes in the MLS, or we don't want it in at all. Be very cognizant of CCP and the limitations that places on you in terms of the marketing. That last little tag on that tip says, watch out for vendor mistakes. And I'm telling you this because I've seen this many times over the last couple of years. It's this specific scenario, along with a couple of variations. I was excited. I went over to the house. I put my promotional materials in the garage and I put my sign, my little yard sign, not the big one, on the side of the house or in the garage. And lo and behold, the gardeners thought they would be helpful. And they pushed my sign into the ground out front. And someone reported this. And this all happened before the sellers had given the go-ahead to put it in the MLS. That's a problem, okay? We're going to listen to the story. I would say based on the evidence, we will probably issue the citation. You are not without recourse in that situation, but that's the point here is just be cognizant and careful that stuff like that doesn't happen. Whether those stories were true, I do not know, but they have certainly been told to me. Second tip, if you get a listing, just make sure to at least register it within 2 days of the effective list date. Basic primary rule of the MLS, in place forever, easier now than ever, because all you got to do is go on to your matrix toolbox and register with 5 pieces of information. Number 3, make sure your seller understands potential issues when keeping the property off the MLS or using coming soon. I've covered this. I just gave that quick example with the vendor, but your seller should also be fully advised. We certainly don't want your seller kind of creating a situation by, let's say you're in coming soon. You've got your signs out, you're totally allowed to do all that, and a buyer's agent is walking around that neighborhood with their clients and they see the sign and they say, oh my God, I love it. I'm going to knock on the door, I don't care. They knock, seller's home, we love your home, we're in the neighborhood, this is my agent, can we come in and see it? You're not there to tell the seller no, that you can't do that. Believe it or not, I have not yet had a report under that hypothetical, okay? Since coming soon has started. It's just an example of why you want to make sure that you use that coming soon form so that your seller is fully educated. Make sense? Okay. Number 4, don't allow showings, broker opens, open houses, etc. on your coming soon listing. I appreciate the creativity of agents. I really do. I have seen some creative options thrown at me on how to get around the showing a coming soon listing, such as, well, it's not really anybody important. It's just a bunch of brokers I know. Okay. I think we all know that the reason for doing that is to generate that interest, and so that those brokers can go back and tell their clients whether or not they should make an offer on it. It's an end run, right? It's a construct that I wouldn't buy into. I've also seen folks use tricks, and I'm sorry to have to tell you these awful stories, but they are real. What if I have an estate sale? Okay, where everybody gets to come in the house and look at the furnishings because we're going to sell those. Does that count as a showing? My argument's going to be the same. Why are you doing that? You know, aren't you just kind of getting around that rule? I've seen these things. We have not issued very many citations on showing and coming soon. That's great news, just so you know. If you're interested, I would also like to point out that we've done the research, and the amount of double-ended coming soons over these years is no different than the amount of double-ended actives. What does that mean? A lot of the concern was that coming soons would be used by the listing brokers and agents to their own advantage, and that they would surreptitiously do showings and keep the public away in order to double end things. I am happy to report the analytics so far do not support that concern. Okay. Make sure to use the coming soon form. Very basic. Oops. Number 6, if you're going to use hold status, make sure you get written instruction from your seller to do so. This is something that we actually do see a lot of. Somebody goes wild with the hold status. They just know that, oh, I can park it for a day and then I'll move it right back out, because that way I can save a day of days on market and put it right back to active. A lot of times those get reported by the agents who are looking at that listing in Matrix. They say, wait a minute, this was just on hold. Now it's active. Now it's hold again. Then it was active for 2 days. And it's just a complete ping pong game, you know, with these statuses. At that point, we're going to feel justified in asking you, if you're that listing agent or broker, for your written instructions from your seller for each one of those moves. Because at that point, that's just abusing the process, the privilege, I should say. Last one is, if your seller wants their listing taken off the market, or if they tell you they want to cancel the listing, you should consider using withdrawn status. It's really kind of a code red. It's not final. I should point out, withdrawn is not a finalized status. If things get, you know, corrected and you want to go back to active from withdrawn, you can do that. You'll get no DOM while you're in withdrawn. You can go back, or you mistakenly used withdrawn and it was really to evaluate offers and you want to go from withdrawn to pending, totally fine. You know, not an issue. I just wanted to point out conceptual and useful distinctions between hold and withdrawn. Any questions on any of this?
Jeff, I got a couple. So coming soon, a listing broker can accept an offer, correct? If it's sight unseen?
Yeah, as long as it wasn't shown. I mean,
And if they accept the offer, the status will go straight to under contract. It doesn't have to go to active suddenly and then under contract.
No, you can go from coming soon to pending, or you can go from coming soon to AUC, active under contract. Both of those moves are allowed.
Okay.
I know there was some concern in the initial launch of this that, well, if it went from coming soon to pending, doesn't that indicate that something is amiss, something awful took place? No, because I think we all know you can practically do that. Right? You have an out-of-state investor or something along those lines, or they know that house, you know, and they want it. And then additionally get in contract subject to inspections. That stuff happens.
And follow up, if that escrow falls out, it cannot go back to coming soon, correct?
Great point.
Once it's out of coming soon, you can't go back to it.
Right, because logically, it's no longer coming soon, it's here, right? And so that's a great point. Once you bounce out of coming soon, you can't go back. That's just completely defeats the purpose of this status and is illogical. Well, let's see here. It's 1:01 in my time, So 10:01 your time.
Jeff, if you don't mind, if I could actually ask a quick question.
Of course.
So I'm a new agent, so a lot of this kind of went over my head. So trying to suck in as much as I can. So I have a lot of questions, but I'm going to save a lot of those as I grasp a lot of the concepts and stuff that you covered. For the coming soon, I know that it said 21 days. I know you covered this. Does it have to be in that period for 21 days, or can it be 10 days, 5 days,
No.
etc.? Okay.
Yeah, you're totally flexible within the 21 days. If you
Awesome.
3 days afterwards, and this is what I've seen, Jarrett, 3 days into the coming soon, someone approaches that listing broker and says, we love that house. I'm giving you sort of an offer, a letter of intent that we're going to offer 12% over asking, but we really need to see it. You as a listing broker at that point say, you know what, talk to my seller. We're going to roll the dice. We're going to come out of coming soon to allow you to see it. And you're totally fine doing that.
Awesome. Thank you.
You got any more, Jarrett? I'm here.
I have a lot, but a lot was like more kind of like understanding, I guess, like the terminology of it. So I have the notes on that. So I'm gonna look those up and get caught up on that first. But
Yeah.
And the links, the links that you sent over, I'm just gonna dive into that today. So I'll be on these as much as I can. So I will have questions in the future, but a lot of it right now is I'm sure just terminology type of stuff and getting familiarized with the process, if that makes sense. So
good for you for looking into it, man. All right. Just as the slideshow finishes, I will remind you, we've got a ton of resources online. I think engaging with you either in person or in these video conferences is fantastic. But if you don't have time to attend, you really should take advantage of the work that we've done that will get you far along in your understanding of compliance and all these other things. We've done a lot of work. That's our 2021 numbers. I need to revise those because we processed almost 40,000 reports in 2022. So we're doing the work here for you guys. Keep your data clean, keep the playing field level. It's not without controversy. We're used to it, and we're trying to work with everybody, all our AORs and all our stakeholders to make sure that this is the best MLS that there is for you guys. And if you have anything, I gave you my email early, jeff@crmls.org. We can have a talk that way. You can always go into the compliance chat. You can talk to a real life person, a compliance analyst who will help answer your questions as much as possible. And that is that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you, Kimberly, for putting this together for all of us. Thank you, agents, for watching and participating with all of your questions and comments. Kimberly, you'll send out a follow-up email with Jeff's slides and a link to this video webinar, the recording of it. Again, if you have other questions for jeff@crmls.org. We really appreciate you being here, Jeff, and sharing your knowledge, wisdom, expertise, and answering our questions. So thank you all. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, everybody.